With the detail and painting information all out of the way, the last thing to do is to take this tank for a test drive. Now, like I said before, the model of course is a radio-controlled Tamiya and is a full option kit. Under the hood, the model is 100% stock. The only modifications I made were the drop-in recharge jack system that I mentioned before. The Tamiya full option kits of course come with the main drive, turret rotation, gun elevation, barrel recoil, and photostrobe flash. The two functions that are not included with these kits are any sort of a smoke system, which is interesting because none of the Tamiya full option kits, even up till today in their current releases, give you this option, which are found on the ready-to-run counterparts, which is oddly enough. But another function that is not included with the Tamiya full option Tiger I are any sort of lighting system. Now, all the vehicles that were to come out after this full option Tiger I kit, like the Pershing and all the ones that came afterwards, all those kits do feature a lighting option and a lighting function. These functions are just not present on the Tamiya full option Tiger I. Now for the radio, the customer supplied this unit that we have over here. It's a Futaba Skysport, and it was actually pre-programmed by rctankcommand.com. The installation was 100% problem-free and worked as advertised. What's unique about this system is that the fellow who went ahead and calibrated the radio modified this little toggle switch that we have here, which I'll go over what this system does when I turn the tank over. Now to turn the tank on, first of course I'm going to turn on the radio. Also I'm going to make sure that the toggle switches are nice and centered, which are very easily nudged, specifically when you're trying to film and do stuff with one hand. Turn on the tank. Okay, clearly the engine startup has commenced. Now this tank, being stock Tamiya, this stick here does all of your drive, and this stick here does your functions. Main drive. Side to side rotates the turret. Hang on, there we go. And up and down elevates and depresses the gun. Now, if you're using a stock Skysport, one of the ways to get the other animations to trigger is by utilizing the slider switch here. By going up and hitting up or down will either fire the main gun or the machine gun, and vice versa. Now, one modification that was done by rctankcommand.com was the addition of this little switch. What this switch does is that this foregoes the need to go ahead and mess around with the slider switch here in order to do and actuate the functions. Now, they could still be done with the old-fashioned way, but with a simple hit of a switch here, you can get the exact same functions. And the machine gun. This switch is nice because it's a spring return three-way switch, so there's no need to manually reset the switch after the animation is triggered. Now the gun does have the photostrobe in it as per the Tamiya, only it's really hard to see with the daytime lighting that I have here. And without further ado, let's go ahead and put some miles on this newly rebuilt full option Tiger I. Now currently I'm actually driving really slow with the throttle. The tank can go a lot faster, and on full throttle the tank does look like this. Also keep in mind I am going downhill, so. Now for more scale and control speed, I'm just going to drive the stick at halfway. Otherwise, I'm going to be getting the mob of comments in the section telling me that I'm driving way too fast. Now that the model's back from its test run, you can see that the model performed very well. Of course, under the hood, it's a stock Tamiya, and it does feature basically stock Tamiya performance, which, needless to say, is pretty good. Now, after doing this conversion and comparing this with the other conversions that I've done in the past, I will say that of the 4 main 1/16 scale RC Tiger I's that are on the market, and these of course would include the Henlong, the Tagen, the Matto, and the Tamiya. Of the ones I just mentioned, the Tamiya by far is the best candidate for the initial production conversion. Now, the reason why I came to that determination has to do with the fact that the model does not have side skirts. Why this is important has to do with the way the hulls are connected. On the ready-to-run models that I mentioned before, those units feature a different design for the hull. Those models feature a upper that is separate from the lower hull. On the Tamiya, that's not the case. The entire model's hull is one complete tub. Now, why this is relevant has to do with once the side skirts are removed, you will have a nice view of the tank's sponsons. And with the other two-piece hulls, the sponsons do have this very large and a very unsightly seam between the sections where they mate together. This is not present on the Tamiya, which makes the Tamiya conversion a lot easier compared to the other versions. Now, doing this conversion to the other models is not impossible. It obviously can be done, as I did it with the other Tiger 100 RC build that I did a couple years ago. This version, however, is a much simpler conversion process compared to the other one, which do require a technique in order to conceal the upper and lower hull sponsons. Another advantage that the Tamiya has over the ready-to-run variants has to do with the shape of the turret. Now, this is specifically true for the Henlong model in that the turret is slightly oblong in order for the gearbox to fit inside. On the rear bustle here, you also have the gearbox which emits from the turret and enters into the bustle bin that is molded onto the Henlong Tiger. To do this conversion to a Henlong, you will obviously need to amputate the rear bin, which will now leave you with a very large section removed from the turret to plate over and blend in with the bodywork. You also have these cutouts here on the two sides that are needed for clearance of some of the hull fittings that are on the upper hull. Now, on a regular Tiger I, this isn't really a problem because the bin kind of conceals everything, and once the model is built, everything just basically blends together. However, on the initial production Tiger, clearly this is an issue because of the rear bin removal. Also, when you're doing this conversion to a Henlong, because the gun elevation gearbox is in the rear bustle, you're going to have to redesign how the gun elevates and depresses with that vehicle. You're going to have to replace the stock gearbox and fabricate something, more than likely recycling one of the Henlong Sherman or Stug 3 gearboxes and mounting it into the turret in order to achieve the gun elevation and depression. It is definitely doable, but it does require a lot more complexity compared to the Tamiya, where you just simply don't mount on the bustle bin and you're off to the races. Now, this molded bustle bin configuration, I believe, is also present on the Matto metal tank as well. Only on the Matto one, the conversion is even harder because rather than the piece being plastic, which is fairly easy to cut, grind, and do the bodywork on, with the Matto being all metal, this is going to add some difficulties for the builder, and it is going to present some challenges. Now, again, it's not impossible to do, but it is an extra bit of effort that's going to be required to achieve the same result. Now, the other candidate for this type of a build would, of course, be the Tiger I's from Tagen. The Tagen models are a lot more improved compared to the Henlong counterpart. Those dimensional quirks, like the cutouts that are found on the lower portions of the turret and the somewhat oblong shape of the turret, are not present on the Tagen's tooling. Another benefit that the Tagen has to do with the bustle bin. The rear bustle bin on the Tagen is a separate component and is not integrally molded to the turret's body as it is on the Henlong. Because of this, you can amputate the rear bustle bin off the Tagen and not have that giant cavern to contend with. However, even though there's no large cavern, some of the gearbox that is used for the gun elevation does protrude slightly in a machine slit found on the top portion here of the turret's rear portion. If you're doing this conversion to the Tiger, you are going to still have to modify the interior gearbox, possibly move it forward, or replace it altogether with another unit in order to achieve the gun elevation system. Again, this is not impossible, but is going to still add some more work. However, it's still going to be less work compared to converting a Hemlong or the Matto. Now, the final advantage on the turret that the Tamiya has over the other units has to do where the locations of the turret meet the upper hull. On the Tamiya, the gap is very minimum, and this is as per the real vehicle. On the ready-to-run counterparts, there is a more significant gap where these two locations meet. Now, if you're doing your build as a traditional Tiger I, it's not really that problematic. But if you are working on an initial Tiger, it does become a lot more noticeable. Now, this is something that you could basically just learn to live with, but if it's something that is that pressing of an issue for you, the Tamiya is definitely going to be your only option in that case. Finally, the last feature that the Tamiya has over the other units has to do with the engine hatch. Like I mentioned before, on the Tamiya kit, the engine hatch is actually fully functional and can open and close. Why this is important has to do with, like I mentioned before, with the recharge jack. When the model is fully built, painted, and weathered, getting access to the battery can be an issue and can definitely cause some problem. On the ready-to-run models, you have to either contend with a battery hatch on the bottom of the model, or you're going to have to run a recharge jack to one of the other hatches. Again, this isn't impossible. In fact, on the Matto and the Tiger models that I always do, I always run it through one of the bow hatches, so it is definitely doable. However, on the Tiger I from Tamiya, it's a lot more practical because you have access to the two battery clips right here under the hatch. Now, I will say that on the other versions, the electronics are a lot more simplified. In rather than having two batteries to operate the tank, you only have one single battery, which would then leave one single battery jack to contend with, while on the Tamiya you need two. However, having the engine hatch fully functional definitely makes access to this model a gem, and you don't have to deal with a FIFO system, which was always the bane when working on an early production radio-controlled Tiger I. Overall, I'm very happy on how the model turned out. It was a unique opportunity to do this type of conversion to a Tamiya as opposed to the other variants that I've done in the past. Doing this one here, I also learned and experienced the conversion process on this one that definitely shaped my opinion that I just mentioned before in regards to which one of these Tiger Is is a good candidate for this type of a conversion. Because of the model's minimalistic side hull detailing, in combination with the easy access to the tank's controls and recharge system, the Tiger 100, or the initial production Tiger, makes a fantastic candidate for a radio control build, like this model here. In parting, I will say that the Tiger 100 I always found to be a fantastically different and interesting choice of vehicle. This model definitely was completely different from any of the other Tiger ones which came after it. If this tank is ever brought to a RC tank meetup, it will definitely turn some heads, simply due to the sheer rarity that this variation of the Tiger I exhibits. Which is actually pretty ironic because outside of the ECA shop, this variation of the Tiger I is actually pretty scarce and is mostly unheard of. However, in the ECA shop, this variant of the Tiger I seems to reproduce like jackrabbits. And with that, that wraps up this model showcase video for this 1/16 scale radio-controlled German initial production Tiger I. If you like this video, be sure to subscribe to this channel, where you can get updates on new model showcase and project update videos when they get posted. Another way to keep in the loop of new posted content is by liking us on Facebook. There I have more photos of this particular build, as well as the other smaller and larger scale builds that have been posted on the ECA channel in the past. Furthermore, don't forget to swing by eastcoastarmory.com for more 1/16 scale and 1/6 scale builds and detail components. Thanks for watching.